To do a preventive maintenance, one must assess the present condition. To assess the present condition, one must monitor the condition continuously then one should plan the repair procedure even before the structure actually needs it. So, instead of doing a periodic maintenance, strategic structures can demand a preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is only possible when I monitor this, assess and then plan, which is nothing but structural health monitoring, my dear friends. Therefore, main outcome, one of the most important deliverable of SHM as applied to structures of strategic importance like bridges, offshore structures, nuclear reactors, reservoirs, that is dams, railway lines, etc., is to avoid a premature failure or a breakdown of the facility. So, one of the main outcome of structural health monitoring is to ensure there is no premature failure of the structural system, and the structural system will never seek a breakdown in its lifetime. So, you plan the maintenance procedures in advance and do maintenance without halting or shutting down of the structure. So, that is a very intelligent way of looking at it. I can give a classical example. Let us take an example of a naval dockyard. Friends, you all know that dockyards are essentially open channels which are constructed to house large vessels, let us say ships, for their periodic maintenance. Periodic maintenance could be partial or complete, weld upgrades, painting, treatment for biofouling, upgrade, fault correction of electromechanical systems, etc. There can be many job oriented demand in terms of vessels which are brought down into an open channel, which are called dockyards. Now, Navy operates on various kind of strategic vessels like submarines, etc. These vessels need to be inspected. Inspection could be for a periodic maintenance. It can be on any emergency fault correction. So, they need a dockyard, okay? They need a dockyard. Dockyards, as far as India is concerned, operated by Navy are very few in number, because they are expensive to maintain, number 1, and number 2, you cannot allow the naval vessels to dock in any public dockyards. So, having come to the point, if my dockyard is undergoing a maintenance which is a periodic maintenance which demands shutdown of operation, at that time, had there been an emergency requirement of docking a naval vessel, now the dockyard cannot be used. It remains non-functional. So, the shutdown time caused by a periodic maintenance schedule on a dockyard or a structure of strategic importance deprive the basic utility value of the system itself. This can be avoided. This can be avoided if the dockyard undergoes a preventive maintenance. So, it is not maintained periodically, but it is maintained in a very pre-planned preventive manner, so that the dockyard always remains functional even during its critical aging, even under critical environmental conditions. However, the utility value can be slightly decreased in terms of its operational capacity, but however, no complete shutdown will ever happen for the dockyards. So, friends, preventive maintenance is far advantageous compared to a periodic maintenance. To do a preventive maintenance, we need to assess, monitor continuously to obtain the current condition and then plan for the type of maintenance which we have to do for those kind of structures. Having said this, let us quickly compare the structural health monitoring and a human body analogy. When a human falls sick, he goes to a doctor. So, he volunteers himself to go to a doctor, or his parents, neighbors, friends, well wishers take him to the doctor. So, essentially inspection takes him to the doctor, to a medical doctor. Similarly, inspection demands a complete analogy or analysis of the structural condition, which can be done by monitoring the structure. In this case, it can be done by monitoring his health, There are many ways: blood pressure, ECG, electrocardiograph, etc., MRI, whatever may be the situation demands as per the advice of the medical doctor, his health can be monitored on a continuous basis. Here monitoring is essentially done using sensors. Once sensors respond to the behavior of the structure, the time history response of the structure is plotted. Accelerogram can be an example. Accelerogram is essentially output graph of seismograph equipment. Okay. So, in this case you can always see when you undergo electrocardiograph, there are plots again available which indicates the health condition, let us say respiratory condition of the human. Please understand, we are not still calling the human as a patient because the human is not sick. He is being inspected and diagnosed. So, this is what we call as diagnosis. In medical term, this is what we call as monitoring in SHM term. While monitoring, the output could be you result in assessment of the condition of the structure, saying that whether it is good, better, very good, very bad, whatever may be the indication you want to make, you essentially come to a conclusion about the present condition of the structure, which we call as assessment. Similarly, after the diagnosis, you come to a conclusion the present health condition of the human. If the health condition is bad, he is admitted as a patient. If the health condition is good, then he is recommended as a human and advised to continue certain medicines. So, this is what we call as medication, this is what we call as assessment. Once assessment is complete, then one can recommend certain control algorithms to reduce or completely mitigate the undesired responses of the structure. Here also a similar thing is done. Based on the diagnosis and assessment, one can always recommend a surgery which completely mitigates the problem, or one can recommend a pacemaker, for example, for a heart problem, which continuously monitors and also warns the nervous system or the respiratory system about its critical functioning. So, this is what we call as prescription. Or advice. Here we call this as control. So, on the total, if you look at comparing these two, both of them ensures an overall safety and functionality of the system or the human. Of course, this is done by a doctor who is a medical professional, and this is done by an engineer who is also a doctor, but by academic professional. Which we call as PhD. So, essentially both of them follow the same analogy. You monitor, assess and then recommend control strategies which can essentially ensure the overall safety and continuous functionality of the system. So, that is the main objective what we assume as SHM. So, friends, let us quickly see the summary what we learned in this lecture. We understood what is meant by structural health monitoring, what are the essential objectives, briefly what are the various stages in health monitoring, how health monitoring compares with human body analogy, and what is the advantage of preventive maintenance compared to a routine maintenance, especially when done for structures of high importance. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. We will be happy to take any questions or any added values of your suggestions through the discussion forum of NPTEL IIT Madras. Thank you very much. See you in the next lecture. Bye.